I welcome everyone to today's session. So this is going to be very, very inspiring. And we're here with Chinazor, Vivian, Carlo. It's really amazing to finally have Chinazor, Vivian, Carlo on the session. And this is a session we've really awaited for a very, very long time. So I'm not going to even spend so much time, but Chinazor has come a long way with us. I'll let her really tell her story. This is a very inspirational story. I called it one of the immigrant comeback stories, like greatest comeback stories ever. Hi, Chinazor, welcome. Is it okay to call you Chinazor? Because I'm already used to calling you Chinazor, but I don't know which one you prefer.
I don't have a preference, really. It's just for those that find it difficult to pronounce Chinazor, but I'm cool with anyone.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so really, really amazing to have you on this session. I've been longing to actually have this session with you, and I'm really, really excited. So we just want to hear your story. Your story is very inspirational. I call it one of the greatest immigrant comeback stories in history. So tell us about your journey, your career journey really up to getting the Global Talent Visa. What was it like? Who has Chinazor been in your space, in your domain? So just walk us through that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. My journey is long, but I don't know if I should go chronologically or the other way around. You know my name already. I'm Chinazor Carlo. I started journey with how best do I really go? Is that my story is long, you know that, Marilyn, but let me start by introducing my current status. I am a senior program manager at Neo Group, and what we basically do here is to economically empower Black and Asian minority women who are looking to get into tech and to thrive in tech. So we are being funded by the government to upskill the women who are career changers, because the underrepresentation that is often being spoken about when it comes to females and also Blacks. So that's what we basically do. Prior to joining Neo Group as a senior program manager, I rose the ladder to the senior program manager from an assistant program manager to a program manager, and then currently. But prior to this time, I was headhunted for a team manager role. It's an international organization supporting Microsoft. So I got into that position. I was at the point of trying to do my MBA in advanced data science, AI, and machine learning. But when I got headhunted, since I've never been a manager, I told myself it's good that I experience this managerial position. Since I didn't apply for the role, let me experience it. So I had to defy my admission, and then I undertook that managerial role. Prior to being that team manager, I used to work for a telecoms company, a telecoms clearing house. So what we basically do is to transit communications between mobile number operators. For example, you have a 3 network, but you now want to port that network out to another provider, like 2. For example, there's a network called Orange, or a network called 2, or EE, for example. You want to port from 3 to EE, but you want to retain your number. That's a service that wasn't very, very popular in West Africa, Nigeria, precisely where I come from. So I was working for that telecoms company, and I became in charge of that product when it was launched back home in Nigeria. Prior to owning that product, it's called Mobile Number Portability. I was working with Computer Warehouse Group. If you know about core banking application called Finacle, they are the ones that produce that core application called Finacle. So I was like an account manager servicing Standard Chartered Bank and then Stanbic IBTC. And also I worked with FCMB, like when they migrated from firstcitygroup.com to FCMB.com. I was part of that project that carried out that migration across all the first FCMB branches and stuff like that. So that has been my journey up until now. You can see it's like it's not aligned to a particular path, even though I was into tech. Yeah, that's about me. That's my career journey, so to say.
Wow, amazing. Okay. So, what brought you to, how did you hear about the Global Talent Visa? And yeah, tell us, how did you hear about it and decide to apply?
Yeah, so for the Global Talent Visa, there was I when I was looking to see myself globally, I was telling myself I want to appear on the global scenes. I saw a program by Tech Nation, and I completed that program and got their certificates. I also saw some clips or stuffs around Global Talent Visa, but I didn't know what that meant. I didn't. In fact, I felt it didn't even concern me at all because to me, local me, what do I have? What do I know? Everything I've done, I never even imagined that I can. Like, I never even thought I could try to apply for such things. So I overlooked it completely. Then when I was sitting in an interview, I came to the UK to do my master's in artificial intelligence with business strategy, and I was sitting in an interview. My employer asked certain questions towards the end of the interview. I said to them that I was looking for a sponsorship visa. I was looking for a work that could sponsor my visa and my stay here. So she said, from your story, from what I hear about you, you don't even need someone that would sponsor you. Why don't you go and apply for the Global Talent Visa? That was the second time I was hearing about it. So it's when the employer said this, I started, the first time I saw it was daunting, so I overlooked it. I didn't even remember anything like that again. But when she said it again, she said just check Tech Nation, and once she said Tech Nation, I remembered, oh, I've seen this before, but that this is not for me at all. So that was the second time I heard about Global Talent Visa, and I now started considering it, although I didn't take any steps then because everything about it looked very daunting, and I felt I didn't see myself in it. That was just the truth then.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. And then you went on to apply. Okay. So how was that first journey? The first application journey? How was it like? What was the process from preparing your evidence to submitting that first journey, that first phase? I mean, people will get to understand what we mean by first journey very soon, but yeah, how was it?
Marilyn, thank you so much for for organizing this. Really, sometimes when you haven't seen something before, or when you haven't heard it from people that have experienced it before, you just feel like you write yourself off. In fact, you second guess yourself and say, "No, this is not for me." So when that employer said that thing, I still did not, because of the first impression I had. I never felt it's something worth spending my time on because I didn't really see myself in it. I was just saying, local me, how can I go about this? This is not for me, really. It's for people that are way up there, people that are doing this, doing that, without realizing that some of the things I've done too are some of such things. It's just that I wasn't audible enough. I wasn't pronounced enough. I wasn't selling myself enough. I didn't have that digital footprint. So after that, I tried to do a little more research, but my mind was not on that research. When it was done on me was closer to the expiration of the visa I was currently on. If you are on a visa in the UK or anywhere else, you will understand what I mean by when your visa is about expiring and there are no hopes of anything. So that was when I began to extensively make that research about the requirements, the Tech Nation guidance documents that is on their website. I started looking at their criteria, and even at that, it was still feeling daunting. So I had to start, after this initial research, I had to start research of qualitative and quantitative calls. I started making calls to some close allies that I felt that went through the route. I also went to the Global Talent Visa Forum, and I saw some communications of people there. So when I was feeling like all over the place, and when I was also very closer to the expiration of my visa, I had no option than to put my foot down to get things started. So what I did basically was I had to create a workbook I enlisted all the criteria required. And in that technician guidance, they also made provisions for these kinds of evidences that should match each of those criteria, like the mandatory and the optionals. So after I listed it, I now started thinking of, and I started ticking off, oh, okay, for this mandatory criteria, this kind of evidences that I need to support it. I started taking off the ones I had or I felt I had because I wasn't even fully convinced that I had them. So as I was taking them off, I was now thinking about the kinds of evidences I could put together to to organize them. So that was how I approached it. That general mindset. And when I did, I wasn't strategic about it. I was just at that first instance, just put everything together to see how I can to see that I'm able to even. I just wanted at first to see myself being in that global talent kind of mindset and seeing myself applying for it. So that was how I started. That was my first. That was the first things I did. And when I was done, I still made a few calls. And I won't lie to you. This time, there were a lot of things that were telling me this is not for you. But because I had no option, so to say, I had to just put it together, not strategically, but let it just be that I've done what I needed to do. Sleepless nights. I sat on one chair for 3 days, if not more, just putting everything together. And then I eventually turned it in like that. So that was how the first submission happened.
So how long did it take you from hearing about it to actually preparing and submitting first time?
It took me over 6 months. Like the first time I heard about it, of course, I told you already, I didn't see myself in it, so I didn't even bother. But the second time I heard about it during an interview with that employer, that was when so I can say it took me about 7 months. It took me about 7 months to start thinking about it and then to start putting those things I said together to apply for it.
Yeah. Because I remember when you reached out, then like you shared your evidence list the first time, and I don't know if you can remember that conversation we had.
When I shared that list, I had submitted an application. So when like I told you, I wasn't strategic about it, so to say. I from the research I made and from a few friends that I know have gone through the process, they helped me review certain things. I got in touch with certain other people that were supporting with Global Talent Visa or that are recipients. So as soon as I submitted it, because I was unsettled, I started reaching out. I reached out to you. I sent you the list of my evidences. The first thing, when I sent it to you, if you remember, the first thing you told me, you said, I think you requested to call me, maybe because you didn't want me to feel to start to die before my death, so to say. You said that from what you're looking at, that there are misaligned criteria matching here, as in I misaligned matching the criteria to the correct evidences. Those were the things you spotted. I submitted today. I shared those things with you almost the following week or even not the same day. And then right from that first sharing, that was when you said, I see some misaligned evidence to criteria matching here. So that one already skipped my mind again until I eventually got the response from Tech Nation.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned something that you were, after submitting, you started reaching out. What prompted you to start reaching out to maybe different people after you've actually done the submission? What triggered that for you?
Yeah, so because after my submission, right, I was hearing, I started getting on that forum, on that technician forum, I started hearing feedback of people that were getting responses from technician, and some of the things they were saying, some were positive, some were endorsed, some weren't endorsed. So it made me want to go back to my submission. I started taking a look. So there are some things I wasn't clear about. There were some things because that first submission, like I said, I wasn't very strategic about it. I didn't seek guidance from I sought guidance from individuals that have gone through it. And when they come to me, they tell me, I am not sure of this, but this is what I did in my time. And the technician guidance often changes. So revision this, revision that. I'll go through those revisions again because I wasn't very certain of that submission, and because I felt I didn't seek proper guidance. That was the reason I had to reach out to yourself, because you speak more about it. I also reached out to DG Evolve or something. Yeah, DG Evolve. That was how I got in contact with some other people. And your feedback exactly was also their feedback. It's that mindset. I wasn't too sure. That was why I started reaching out, just to calm my fears or to calm my nerves down. But yeah, that was what made me reach out.
Well, so what when you received that rejection, how did you feel? I mean, how did it affect you? What was your reaction when you received that rejection? Rejection, yeah.
I'm very happy I can smile now because I mean I was rejected, but I'm redeemed now, you know. But then it hit me really hard, I must say. Initially, it felt very personal. You know how the first, that first shock, this healing process thing, that shock. I never understood that process until this time, until I received that rejection. It hit me really hard. It felt personally, even though I know it wasn't 100%, wasn't, because it's objective. So my first reaction was really disappointed, and self-doubt crept in again. I questioned my abilities, and I wondered if I had maybe overestimated my qualifications, my experiences, my contributions, my impact. But after allowing myself some time to process the emotions, I then shifted focus to now learning from that whole experience. And I decided to be more strategic again about it because, of course, I have to bounce back, really. Yeah, that was my feeling at that time.
Wow. So speaking of bouncing back and learning and strategizing, what did you really learn from that first journey, right? And what did you do differently the second time?
Yeah, so looking back, right, I believe my application lacked some specificity when it comes to requirements and the evidences I submitted. I lacked that, and also it lacked that alignment which you spotted when I shared the list of evidences I had submitted. And it corroborated with what the other party that I also reached out to shared told me. So I was now at peace that, oh, okay, at least I know. I think you said a problem known is a problem half solved. So when I found this that lack of specificity and misalignment with the criteria and the evidence I submitted, it's true I had some achievements. I hadn't presented them in a very clear way that demonstrated the impact they were looking for and presented me as a leader or an authority that has a great influence in my field. So that narrative I I presented in that first submission, it wasn't as compelling as it needed to be. And some of the evidences as well didn't directly support that criteria. And when the rejection came, it didn't just come empty. It came with what they called pro forma. I can't remember that word. I think it's pro forma they called it. It's more like the reasons for the rejection. So they outlined the reasons for those rejections. So after reflecting on the rejection, I now realized this failure. That, in fact, I told myself this is just a step to the path. And I often I saw it somewhere, and since then I've been singing with it. Even if you stumble, turn it into a dance. So once I realized that, I knew I wasn't ready to let nothing, no failure, no rejections, nothing define my journey anymore. So I saw it as an opportunity to refine my approach and prove myself that I was capable of achieving this goal. So the first thing I did was the initial one, I did it on my own. I did it with I sought help really from people, but it was not a structured help. I was just asking them here and there. So I decided now to go fully into a coaching program, and that was how I found Glotale, of course, yourself and your team. So, and the Glotale coaching program was very transformative for me because while I've seen the pro forma that was sent for the rejection, it wasn't very clear to me as to what I can do because I remember I shared it with you. And when I shared it with you, you said, yeah, even from before when I submitted that, you already pointed it out to me that I misaligned some things and that you said I have a very strong case. I remember that word you used, that I can appeal for it. But when I went to DG Evolve told me, I also shared the pro forma, the rejection. And they said, because your letters of recommendation, you didn't even pass the letter of recommendation, which is like one of the mandatory criteria or evidences that you need to submit for the mandatory side of the submission. Appealing may not work. When I came to you, you said the same thing, and you now narrowed it down to the persons I used and also some requirements from that guidance document as to whom I needed to use, you know. So that was what changed everything, and that was what I did differently. I went through the coaching, and I was patient with the process. Sometimes I was very much in a hurry, but because I had this accountability from Glotale and I had them keep putting my anxiety in check. Because had I come to Glotale at that time, had I known about Glotale and came to Glotale before the first submission, some of the checks that you have completed and some of the ways you said, if you remember how I'll be telling you, oh no, I need to do this thing now because I have a deadline of my expiration and stuff like that. You tell me it's better you submit quality than quantity. I don't know if you remember this when you were always trying to tell me calm down and you can't submit this thing, not when you're in this coaching program. So that was why I decided to continue working with yourself, and that was a transformation. So you provided that clarity, or Glotale provided that clarity on the criteria. And you don't just provide clarity for me to succeed in the second one. You first reviewed that first submission. You offered feedback on those previous evidences, and then you helped craft the stronger narrative for the second submission. And that personalized guidance and access to your resources gave me the confidence to approach the second application with more strategic mindset. And because what you presented tallied with what the other people presented, there was this confidence I had within me that, oh, okay, this is what I should have done the first time. If I had just come to yourselves, not after I've submitted, I don't think I would have had the same story really in that first submission. But I was no longer coming from that point of regret. I was now coming with a sense of a renewed purpose, renewed accountability, renewed sense to bounce back, really. So that was the transformation, and that was how the coaching program, that was what I did differently, basically, to say.
Wow, amazing. It's really, people will not understand this rejection. It can take a whole toll on even someone's, like making you, because you feel like, is it me that is getting rejected or is it my application, right? It's almost like your personality is tied to it, the work you've done over the years and all that. So I understand what you mean. And yeah, that process, I remember vividly how it was. So
you may not understand until you may not fully understand this. This is someone reporting to you, Marilyn. You may not understand it until you face it. But it's good. It's just best that we do the right things even from the day one. And sometimes experience is not always the best teacher. If someone else has experienced it, you don't need to wait. So I don't know people. I can't see the audience, but what I'm trying to say is I did need to face that thing because it affects your mental ability, your mental well-being. You're not able to be productive for a period of time unless you have strong people. Had it been you didn't come to me to tell me, Chinazor, I have a very strong case for you, I don't know if I would have given up completely about it, and I wouldn't even know my next steps. So what I'm trying to say is build positive people around you and try to do things the right way. Don't be overconfident in what you think you know, or always have a checkpoint, really. Had I started the coaching program at first, I don't think I would have spent all that money, and I don't think I would have gone through that anxiety and mental distraught just because of that rejection. It was grief.
Yes, and speaking of appeal, right? Because when we looked at your application, for people to understand, appeal process is free. So they give you opportunity to appeal once when you get rejected. But sometimes the appeal, well, the advantage could be that you get more feedback, right? But if you've already gotten feedback and there are obvious flaws in the application, sometimes it's just better to reapply and just re-strategize, like Chinazor is talking about, rather than going back through the appeal process, because it might just take more time as well. You'd spend more time waiting and all that. So yeah, that I just wanted to give that context around why you chose to reapply rather than going back to appeal. And so looking at first application, second application, can you maybe give us example of, was it the evidence that you submitted that was different, or the structure, or what was different? Maybe if you can give us some examples of first application evidence, second application evidence, what was really different between the two?
I would say everything was different. I would say the only thing that wasn't different was the narrative, the story, the impact story or the impact headline. But when it comes to the structure you mentioned, it was different. So now with the second one, I focused on quality over quantity. And I also focused on arrangement of things because my first submission, of course, the guidelines, the guidance document states you don't have, each evidence shouldn't pass 3 pages of A4 paper. Mine didn't pass, but the way I structured, the way I organized it, I wrote it like a worded document. It looked very wordy. It didn't give me space to now attach the real evidences. So, those wordy side of things makes it look like you're self-declaring. But if you had evidences are stronger. Evidences could be clips, pictures, and stuff like that. So that first submission lacked those complete evidences because I tried to storytell the evidence and the narrative behind that evidence, and it left me with little space to organize the piece of evidence actually. For example, where I spoke in a very large event, and the large event I spoke for was not like I applied for it. I was recommended, I was seen as an authority, and I was recommended to speak at that conference that attracted over 500 people and the rest of them, and attracted industries like Google, like PayPal, like a lot of this tech and fintech and other industries were attracted. So I tried to storytell, which is more like me declaring, and I lacked the space to now append the pictures, probably the invite letter that was sent to me telling me about the recommendation for me to speak at the event, the other letter saying everything about your accommodation, everything will be paid for, the other ones showing me on the stage where I was speaking and the background of the people, the many people that were there and the kind of attention I was receiving, all the publications that came afterwards. I didn't have space to put all of them in a clear and a compelling manner. So that was different when I started our coaching program. So each piece of evidence, Glotale, you meticulously try to align this criteria, and I worked hard as well to tell a cohesive story of my contributions and impacts. And another thing is those storytellings were not just like what I'm doing here now. I'm telling stories. I'm not sharing any impact. So at the end of every story I told, for example, I attended a conference. I spoke at an event that attracted over 500 people. So what? So what? So at the end, either at the beginning or at the end of it, I had to put, and this led this number of people to now get into tech, and this changed these people's life from A to B, and this attracted this revenue from this to this, and this made this certain number of people, these young women got into my mentoring program, and their stories changed, and they got into, all those metrics weren't there. So these are some of the organizations that were made. And also the worded document, there was a way, there's a template or a resource you gave me that helped me organize those things in a way that is visibly evident. And then the wordings required in the guidance document, you make sure that I lifted those words and put there for them. Because one thing I understood from that first submission is Tech Nation, they receive a lot of applications. So it's difficult for them to go and start looking for what they are looking for. They just want to see it at the first presentation. So these are the things that changed in my second presentation. I also there were some supporting letters I got then, which I wanted to do away with, but you said no, don't do away with it. Just keep it first. You may have to go back to those people to issue you a fresh letter. You may use it after you've put in your piece of evidence. You can append it there. So you also helped organize it in a way that I could attach those supporting letters at the back of those evidences, just to solidify the evidences and every other thing. So these are the things that changed. It's not one, it's not two. Everything about it was just changed. The arrangements, the structure, the storytelling with pictures and all those things, So all those things changed with those key metrics that were also being pointed out. So these are some of the things that changed. I don't know if you require any other particular example, apart from this one I've just shared now.
Wow, that's amazing. And for those, so we have people on LinkedIn Live. If you've got any questions, because this is a very rare session, I know Madam Chinazor is a very busy woman as well, so to get her was not easy. So if you've got any questions, so just put that in the comments and we'll come to the questions as we move along. She's talking about her journey. She was rejected the first time and went through coaching program and reapplied. And we're just going through that and talking through that. So Chinazor, yeah, I'd like to really understand, you've talked about how your first evidence and the second one, like the things that were different and all that. Tell us, so you've talked about as well your work experience, your background and all that. What do you think made your application stand out actually? What about you? Who is that Chinazor? You talked about story. What story did you tell and what was unique? What would you say is your unique selling point for this application that really made you stand out?
Interesting. Well, sometimes your stories, for me, people tell my story better than I tell it myself. I can't pinpoint a particular thing I can say that made my story stand out or made it not to stand out. But what I know is, generally in my life, generally in my work, generally in everything I do, I like to make impact. I like to see how I create a difference with people, and I do it with all passion, right? So I also believe that in learning, in teaching, you learn, and in learning, you teach. So everything I've done right from childhood has been to solve a problem or to make an impact in someone's life. I always, when I see people, not in a prideful way, but when people, I'm someone that wants to go to bed, and I see people are thanking God that I exist somewhere in any part of the world. So these are some of these. That's what I would say is the thing that made my application stand out, because right from the time I considered applying for this global talent visa, I said initially I didn't see myself as a global talent. It was Oyin Kasola Adebayo, my employer then, that at that time during the interview then, that said, you know what, you should apply for this. And that was because I led that conversation of I am seeking sponsorship. Of course, all the jobs I sought that time was for sponsorship. And when I get an offer and I ask, will you sponsor? And they say no, I don't take the offer, because I was looking for that. So when I heard about that, and I started putting myself in those impacts I've made. I've mentored women. I've led, for example, women in data science at Stanford University. I started the movement back home in Lagos, Nigeria, when I was endorsed as an ambassador, and I led it from zero to the number of members we had before I left and moved over to London. When I came to London, I informed the women in data science that I have left Lagos. They transferred my license to the UK here. They said there are other ambassadors here. You could collaborate with them. And before you knew it, whenever anyone applies for an ambassador program or ask any questions around London, they will refer them to me. I'll just see my email, WISA Stanford. Hi, Chinazor. This certain number of people are looking for this is in the UK. Please, we are pushing them to you to put them through and stuff like that. These are some of those impacts. So What I'm trying to say is in life generally, whatever we are doing in any situation or role we find ourselves, let's try to see how we create impact, no matter how. We shouldn't look down wherever we find ourselves. That's what I'm trying to say. For all the organizations I worked for, I also try to make this impact. There are, when it came to innovation side of things in the application, there are innovation, there's a place you need to prove innovation that you've done. I used something I did in my previous place of work. I wasn't sent to do those things. I did it out of impact. So everything around you should be revolved around impact and nothing more than impact. Because once you make that impact, the recognition that you seek will come. The revenue that you seek for this impact will come. So I can't pinpoint and say, okay, this is the particular thing that made my application different. Marilyn, remember, even when I came to you, there are some questions you were asking me during those coaching sessions. When your team is not just you, there are different sets, but it may not be you, maybe one of your team members, but there are some questions you would ask me. To me, I didn't even see an impact in it, but the probing questions you asked me brought out those impacts. And you went through my LinkedIn, and you were like, you have all those people in your network, and you're telling me you don't know who can give you recommendation that in a product led. So there are a lot of nuances to it. So it's not an absolute response to say, okay, this particular thing made it stand out. Everything is tied around impact, and impacts that you can quantify, not just impacts generally, impact that you can quantify and create a metrics around. Really, that's what I can say.
Wow, wow. So this second process phase you went through, what are some challenges that you faced during that second application process?
Anxiety. Anxiety, the biggest challenge was overcoming my own fear of failure, Something that kept me really strong was I had a supportive partner. I have a very supportive partner who sees, I don't see myself existing. I don't see myself positive. I don't see any good in what I can do. I don't just notice things, but he notices it, he picks on it, and he tries to make it bigger than I anticipate. So I might say, I helped this person solve this problem today. To me, it's nothing. And she said, oh, wow, you did this. That's amazing. So how much more do you want to help this person? Or I say, oh, I couldn't solve this thing for that person. She said, but why? Just take a look. You can do it better. So that support was something that really kept me going. So when that failure came, I was devastated, yeah. But with him being available and around to give that moral support, I was able to now overcome that challenge. So that was one of the particular challenge, that fear of doubting myself. So I found it challenging really to narrow down my evidences and focus on the most impactful examples, right? When the coaching program I had with Glotale was then what helped simplify this whole feeling and made me know that I'm not alone. Some things I disregarded were the things that was even kind of elaborated or expounded the more. And I started seeing more impact in those things than before. I've been a mentor all my life. When females lead, Association for Black Ethnic Minority Engineers, even at Aston University, in fact, they'll even issue me certificates. I will go impromptu to go and support in an event, and they said there's a pitch. I decided to pitch, and they tell me I won the first prize position. These are some of the things I was doing, but I never counted it as anything. So that challenge of trying to bring out the impact of what you're doing. And another challenge was because I felt I didn't have a defined path. There are people, when you read people's testimonials about Global Talent Visa, they tell you, I'm a group marketer. They've been from their childhood. In fact, they knew they were going to be a group marketer from the womb, and they've been working towards that till now. That was not my story. There are people you will see, they are data analysts from birth, and they have been following that trajectory, being data analysts in various industries, in various roles, in various capacities. That was not me. I was just a little here, a little there, but I was into digital technology, and I was making part in digital technology. So looking at other people and feeling less of myself because of what I feel they have, or what I feel they are, when I feel they are more defined than myself, was another challenge I faced. So, and that really affected trying to concentrate, to put myself together and put things down. that's the reason again why I said it's important we go to people that have these experiences. You may have all the grades, but if you don't have proper guidance, you may not really achieve the result. You may just keep going in circles, doing the same things, expecting a different result. So these are some of the challenges. Another challenges I faced were when I met those researchers, not speaking to the right people. There are people I was recommended. I was not that I was recommended. I saw them because of the contributions they make in the global talent visa forum, on the Tech Nation forum, for those that are trying to apply and those that have been successful. And when I reach out to them, they maybe they are busy, they didn't have the time to concentrate on me and to tell me, okay, this is what you can do. They would just ask you one question: which organizations have you worked for? And I'll mention, they'll say, oh no, that's not a product-led organization. That one alone deflated me. No, they didn't take the time to go through and see the products that they are doing and tell me how I can tell those stories in that products-led way, how I can bring out those products in that way. It was DJ Evolve that told me, why did you say this company is not a global tech, a product-led organization? I said, well, because I had shared it with an experienced person with global talent, and the person told me this. She said, no, look at their products here. Look at their products here. I said, oh, okay. It improved I saw it as less of a challenge. And when I started the coaching session, you said, okay, you know what? Because when I finished everything, you asked me, Chinazor, what are you in doubt of at this time? Because I believe I would have also been making my own research. I don't know if you knew, but you remember when you asked this question at the tail end, when I was about submitting and I was in a hurry to submit, you said, no, what is your mind telling you that is your fear about this submission? I mentioned again about this product-led thing, and I told you, someone said, I can't remember if I told you the person that said, but I just said, someone said, these are the products. They said, you know what? Don't let Tech Nation look for those products on your CV. Spell it out. Remember, I did my CV several times. You told me that my CV is rich, but there's things I need to put. On each of the job places I've worked, I had to list out those products that they are in charge of and stuff like that. So that was another challenge I faced, not speaking to the right people or speaking to people that were not that didn't have the time to speak to me, and that also kind of demoralized or increased the fear and apprehension and stuff like that. So these were some of the challenges I faced. There are, of course, there are a lot of challenges. You might even tell those challenges better than myself now, but these are the ones I can remember on top of my head right now.
I remember when the part of product led, remember we went through that phase of even going through the companies. It wasn't very obvious, the places you worked, what is the product? And we had to go through that to actually identify and really call it out. Like, don't make them, I think I remember telling you, don't leave
Look
any
for it.
up to assumption. Exactly. Just make it very clear, super clear to them, because some of times these assessors, they are very busy. You might assume that, oh, they would understand. Okay, I worked here, but they just assume you're actually just teaching a 5-year-old and making it very crystal clear, calling it out. Yeah.